Right now, there are people making payments on pickup trucks that cost them $100,000 and are worth $40,000. They cannot sell them, they cannot trade them, and they cannot afford to keep bleeding on them because they owe nearly double what the truck is now worth. The six-figure truck bubble exploded, and it is burying the exact people who stretched the hardest to look successful. The dealer got paid, the car maker got paid, and the buyer got left holding a fast-melting anchor with an 84-month chain attached. So how did a work truck become the worst financial decision of their lives? And why did nobody warn them? Make sure you subscribe, because I started this channel for one reason: to share what dealerships and car makers don't want you to hear. With your support, I can keep making these videos. Now let's get into it. Let me start with how insane the pricing got, because you cannot understand the crash until you see the bubble that came before it. Somewhere along the way, the pickup truck stopped being a tool and turned into a rolling luxury statement, and the prices went completely off the rails to match. We are talking about trucks with stickers that would make your grandfather choke, an electric Hummer that starts around $108,000 and can climb toward $145,000 with the boxes checked, a top Rivian pushing past $115,000, a loaded Ram in its fanciest trim crossing the $100,000 line. And that is before you even get to the loaded Denalis, the Platinums, the King Ranches, the high-dollar Raptors, all of them creeping into territory that used to be reserved for actual luxury cars and small houses. A pickup truck, the vehicle invented to haul hay and gravel, was suddenly priced like a status object for the country club parking lot. And the wildest part is that people bought them in droves because the industry had convinced everyone that the truck in your driveway was a measure of how well you were doing in life. And to really feel how insane this got, remember what a truck used to cost. Not that long ago, a good, capable, well-equipped pickup was a $30,000 or $40,000 vehicle. A serious purchase, but a sane one. In the span of just a few years, the industry roughly doubled that, and then doubled it again on the halo trims, until the top of the truck lineup collided head-on with the price of a Mercedes or a small vacation home. And they did it on purpose, because they discovered something incredibly profitable. They figured out that a buyer who would never dream of walking into a luxury car showroom would happily spend luxury car money on a truck because a truck felt rugged and practical and earned, even when it was dripping with the same leather and screens and price tags as any European sedan. The truck was the perfect Trojan horse for luxury pricing, a way to sell a working man a $60,000 markup and make him feel like he was being sensible while he signed for it. That was the genius of the bubble, and it was also the trap. But here's the trick that made it all possible. The thing that turned a crazy price into a monthly payment people would actually sign for. The loan got stretched. To make a $90,000 or $100,000 truck feel affordable, the industry stretched the financing out longer and longer. 6 years, 7 years, sometimes even beyond, until the payment on a six-figure truck looked almost reasonable on paper. And that is how a regular person making a regular income ended up in a $100,000 vehicle. Not because he could afford it, but because the payment was smeared across so many years that he stopped looking at the total. A truck owner in suburban Houston who stretched into a loaded truck to look successful was not really buying a truck. He was renting a status symbol on the longest, most expensive terms the dealer could find, and he never once did the math on what that thing would be worth when the shine wore off. Nobody did. That was the whole point. And here's the quiet poison inside a loan that long. In the early years, almost none of your payment actually goes toward paying off the truck. It goes toward interest. So a man 3 years into an 84-month loan on a $90,000 truck has paid a small fortune in payments and still owes almost the entire balance. Meanwhile, the truck, from the second he drove it off the lot, started falling. So you have two lines on a graph moving in opposite directions, a loan balance that barely drops and a truck value that plummets. And the gap between those two lines is the hole the owner falls into. The longer the loan, the wider the hole. That 84-month term did not make the truck affordable. It just guaranteed that for most of the time he owned it, he would owe more than it was worth. The dealer knew that when he wrote the loan. The buyer found out later, the hard way, standing at a different dealership trying to trade it in. Now for the part they never warned anybody about, the crash, and it is not a prediction, it is happening right now. Those six-figure trucks, especially the electric ones that were hyped as the future, are losing value at a speed that is genuinely breathtaking. Take the electric Hummer, the poster child of the whole bubble. One of these trucks that sold new for around $131,000 is now worth something like $71,000 on the used market. That is $60,000 gone, evaporated on a single truck in barely any time at all. The electric Ford Lightning tells the same story, losing roughly half its value in 2 to 3 years, with trucks that sold near $70,000 now trading in the low 40s. Used Rivians that stickered well over $100,000 are showing up on lots starting around $40,000. And the Cybertruck, the most hyped of them all, is handing early buyers losses of $30,000, $40,000 and more. The pattern is unmistakable. The trucks that climb the highest are falling the hardest, and they are falling right now, straight through the floor. Picture what that looks like on an actual lot. A Hummer EV owner in the Scottsdale area who paid well over $130,000 to be the first one on his street, with the electric monster drives it to a dealer 2 years later and gets told it is worth a little over $70,000. He lost the price of a brand new family car on a single truck just by owning it for 24 months. A used truck lot outside of Dallas will now take in electric trucks that stickered at 6 figures and put them on the front line for the price of a modest sedan, because that is genuinely what the market will bear. And a Lightning owner in rural Texas who bought his electric truck near $70,000 to be forward-thinking watches it settle into the low 40s, wondering how a nearly new truck from the best-selling brand in America could hemorrhage value that fast. These are not worst-case horror stories cherry-picked to scare you. This is the middle of the market right now, the ordinary, everyday reality of what these trucks are actually worth once the hype evaporates. And here is who gets buried under that falling truck, because the number on the used lot is only half the story. The other half is the loan. Picture the man who bought that truck near the top, financed most of it over 7 years, and is now maybe 2 or 3 years in. He still owes the vast majority of that loan, because a stretched-out loan barely pays down the principal in the early years. Meanwhile, the truck itself has shed $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 in value. So now he is what the industry politely calls upside down, and what everyone else calls trapped. He owes $80,000 on a truck worth $45,000. He cannot sell it because selling it means writing a check for the difference he does not have. He cannot trade it because the dealer just rolls that massive gap onto the next loan and buries him deeper. And he cannot afford to keep bleeding on a payment for a truck that loses value faster than he pays it down. He is stuck inside the crash, making payments on money that no longer exists, and there is no clean way out. Now, why did the electric trucks in particular fall so violently when trucks used to be some of the best value holders on the road? A few reasons, and they all point the same direction. First, they were never really wanted in the numbers the industry pretended. These were hype products, built on a promise of demand that never fully showed up, so the moment the newness wore off, there were far more of them than there were buyers. Second, the technology moves fast, which means a 2-year-old electric truck already feels a generation behind, and nothing kills resale value like being last year's technology. Third, the recalls and the reliability worries piled up, and a buyer shopping used is not going to pay big money for a complicated electric truck he is nervous about. And fourth, the makers themselves kept slashing prices on the new ones to move them, which instantly dragged down every used one already out there. Put all of that together and you get a perfect storm. A truck that was overpriced to begin with, unwanted in the volume they build, aging fast, and undercut by its own maker. Of course it crashed. It was built to crash. And there is a fifth reason that makes the used electric truck an even harder sell, which is the fear factor. A person shopping for a used 6-figure electric truck is not just worried about the price. He is worried about the battery, the single most expensive part of the vehicle, and what happens when it starts to age or fails out of warranty. He has heard the horror stories about repair bills that cost more than the truck is worth. He knows the technology is complicated and the places that can service it are few, so even at $40,000 he hesitates because he can imagine a future where that cheap truck hands him a catastrophic bill he cannot walk away from. That fear puts a hard ceiling on what these trucks can sell for, and it drives the price down and down until it is low enough to make the gamble worth taking. The very complexity that was sold as the future is the thing scaring away the used buyer, and a truck buyers are afraid of is a truck that keeps getting cheaper. But do not think for a second that this is only an electric problem, because the loaded gas trucks are getting hit too, and that matters even more because it exposes the real lie. The fanciest gas trucks, the top dentalists, the loaded luxury trims that push towards 6 figures are also shedding value at a brutal rate, with the highest, most expensive versions taking the hardest losses of all. Think about what that tells you. It means the crash is not really about electric versus gas. It is about the truth that a pickup truck, no matter how much leather and how many screens you stuff into it, was never a luxury asset that holds its value. It is a work vehicle wearing a costume. When you pay $100,000 for one, you are not buying something that will hold that value, because nothing about a truck was ever built to justify that price on the used market. The badge said luxury, the resale ledger said pickup truck, and the resale ledger always wins in the end. And this is the detail that should stop anybody about to sign for a top trim truck. The more you spend up front, the more you have to lose. When a base work truck and a fully loaded luxury version both settle towards similar used prices a few years down the road, the guy who paid $40,000 loses far less than the guy who paid $100,000, even though they end up owning trucks worth roughly the same. All that extra money the luxury buyer spent, the premium for the badge and the leather and the bragging rights, is the exact money that evaporates fastest, because the used market does not pay a premium for any of it. So the buyer who reached highest, who stretched the most to get the fanciest truck on the lot, is the one who gets hurt the worst when the crash comes. The bubble did not punish everyone equally. It punished ambition. It came for the people who wanted the most and were willing to borrow the most to get it, and it took the biggest bite out of exactly them. So here's the real story sitting underneath this entire crash, the thing the industry worked very hard to keep you from thinking about while they were selling you the dream. A pickup truck was never supposed to be a six-figure status symbol, and it was certainly never an investment. The whole six-figure truck era was a bubble, inflated by two things working together: cheap long loans that hid the real cost, and a marketing machine that convinced ordinary people that spending luxury car money on a work truck made them look successful. Neither of those things had anything to do with what a truck is actually worth. And a bubble built on borrowed money and ego always ends the same way, with a crash that hands the loss to whoever was holding it when the music stopped. That is what is happening right now. The value on these trucks was never real to begin with. It was a number propped up by hype and financing, and the moment the demand cracked and the newness faded, that fake value fell away and revealed what these trucks were actually worth all along, which is a fraction of what people paid. The buyer who treated a truck like a luxury asset just got the luxury asset treatment in reverse, and it is costing him everything. And think about who this crushes the hardest, because it is exactly the person the marketing was aimed at. It is not the wealthy guy who paid cash and does not care. It is the regular working person who stretched, who financed a truck he could not really afford over a loan longer than he wanted, specifically because he was told that this truck would say something about him. He was chasing the feeling of having made it, and the industry sold him that feeling at a $100,000 price with an 84-month string attached. Now the feeling is gone, worn off in a year like it always does, and what is left is the debt, the whole crushing weight of it, on a truck the market has decided is worth less than half what he owes. He did not get greedy in some Wall Street way. He just believed the story that a truck could make him look successful, and that belief is the exact thing being punished. The people who could least afford to lose $40,000 or $60,000 are the ones this bubble was designed to catch. So what do you actually do with all of this, whether you own one of these trucks or you are thinking about buying? A few things, and they can save you a fortune. First, and this is the big one, if you want one of these trucks, let the crash work for you instead of against you, and buy one used after somebody else has already eaten that massive first drop. The same loaded truck that destroyed its first owner can be a genuine value to the second owner who paid $40,000 instead of $100,000. Second, never ever finance a depreciating truck over 7 or 8 years, because that long loan is the exact trap that leaves you underwater. So if you cannot afford a truck on a short, sane loan, you cannot actually afford that truck. Third, be especially careful with the six-figure electric trucks, because they are still falling, and a low price today can still be a bigger loss tomorrow, so let those values settle before you jump. And fourth, remember the simple truth this whole crash just proved. A truck is a tool, not a trophy. And the moment you start buying one to impress people instead of to do a job, you have stepped into the exact trap that is wrecking so many people right now. And fifth, if you already own one of these trucks and you are underwater, do not panic and let a dealer talk you into rolling the loss into a new loan, because that only makes the hole deeper and drags it into the next truck. The smarter move is almost always to hold the truck, keep driving it, and let time and payments slowly close the gap, painful as that is, rather than paying a fresh penalty to escape it today. You are not being cheap by thinking this way. You are refusing to set your own money on fire to look successful for a single year, and refusing to let anyone talk you into doing it twice. This crash is not over. It is still rolling downhill, and more of these six-figure trucks are going to keep tumbling in value as the bubble finishes deflating. Subscribe, and I will keep showing you exactly which trucks are crashing the hardest and which ones actually hold their value before the next buyer signs his name on the wrong side of it.